Good morning, children. Today in Social Science and History in class 9, we will begin the lesson Forest Society and Colonialism. Now, colonialism means when one country acquires control over another country and exploits it economically. For exploiting it economically, that is what we call as colonialism. We can take the example of the British rule in our country. So they had political, social, economic control over our country and our people and our resources also. So the objective is to understand what are the causes responsible for deforestation and its consequences, then the rise of commercial forestry, the Indian Forest Act, rebellions, and new developments in forestry. Now, we are aware that forests have great importance for us and they are absolutely essential also. Now, forests play a major role in enhancing the quality of environment. Forests provide us numerous natural resources of economic and medicinal value. We get paper from the forest, furniture, dyes used to color clothes, gum, spices, honey, tea, coffee, then certain herbs and roots which are used for making medicine, bamboo, wood for fuel, fruits, flowers, and home for the birds and animals. So we see that forests give us so much, forests provide us so much, that is in the form of natural resources which are of economic importance and medicinal value. Then forests also help us in many other ways, in the sense that they maintain the ecological balance, regulate the flow of rivers, provide natural habitat to the wildlife, help in rainfall, and conserve the soil. So, forests are extremely important for us. Due to growing population and rapid industrialization, world's forest areas are disappearing at a very fast rate. Between 1700 and 1995, that is a period of industrialization, 9.3% of the world's total area was cleared. And why it was cleared? For industries, cultivation, pastures, and fuel, wood. So we see that so much of our forest area, our forest cover, that was lost. Now we come to deforestation. Now deforestation, that is the disappearance of forests, is referred to as deforestation. Now this is not a recent problem. It began centuries ago. But under the colonial rule, it became more systematic and extensive. That is, that from centuries, as the population has been increasing, more and more land has been brought under cultivation. But after the British came to control us, it became more systematic and extensive. And various reasons were there. That is, more land was needed for cultivation. Then they needed timber for the Royal Navy for building the ships. Then the railway network that was expanding in our country, and the plantations. All this needed the trees to be cut down and the forest to be cleared. So we take up the first reason, that is the land for cultivation. As population increased over the centuries, the need for food increased, obviously. Now when there was more demand and more need for food, peasants increased the cultivation by clearing the forest. During the colonial period, cultivation expanded more quickly for a variety of reasons, for various reasons. That was for commercial crops like wheat, jute, sugar, and cotton. Raw material was being exported from here to England for their industries. So that is one reason why there was more land for cultivation. Then we come to the next reason, and that was the timber for the Royal Navy. Now, that is, in 19th century, there was need for timber supply for the Royal Navy because oak forests were disappearing in their own country for the ships and all that they were building. So they needed these trees, but they had a scarcity of it over there. So they sent search parties, and these search parties were sent to explore to India also the forest resources of India, and many trees were cut and exported to England. So in order to enable them to build their ships also, so that was another reason why large number of trees were cut down. Then the expansion of railway network. From 1850s, the railway network expanded in our country, and railways were needed for transportation of the troops and their movement from one place to the other. And the second one was for colonial trade, to increase their trade capacity. So railways became important for colonial trade and for the movement of their troops. And to run locomotives, wood was needed as fuel, and also to lay down the railway lines, sleepers. By 1890, 25,500 kilometers of track had been laid, and by 1946, railway tracks increased to over 7,65,000 kilometers. So we see that the railway network that expanded, no doubt it is very beneficial for their trade and for the movement of the troops also, but otherwise it was also important and necessary for a means of transport. And each mile of railway track that is laid down required almost 2,000 sleepers. So naturally, the railway network was expanding, of course, but at the same time, this was being done by cutting down the forest. So forests near the railway tracks began to disappear quickly. So this became another major reason for the forest to be cleared. Then enclosure for plantation. That is how these areas were taken by them and they were sold to the plantation owners. Large areas were also cleared to set up plantations like tea, coffee, rubber, to meet the growing demand for these commodities. The demand for all this was increasing, the demand for tea, coffee and rubber was increasing. So to set up these plantations, that's how the forests were cleared. Colonial government took over the forests and gave a lot of this area, a lot of this land, vast areas were given to the European planters at cheap rates, so that they could have plantation of tea, coffee and rubber out here. So these areas were enclosed, forests were cleared and tea and coffee were planted. So this also led to the clearing of the forests. So we see that land for cultivation increased, and that was how they promoted commercial crops and how they wanted and compelled the farmers to grow these commercial crops like wheat, jute, sugar and cotton for them. Then the second one was the timber for the navy, for building the ships and all that. So that also was the reason why forests were cleared. Then the expansion of the railway network in the country, that also led to a lot of forest area to be cleared. And then the enclosure for plantation, and these European planters, they bought this from the British, and that is how they enclosed, the forests were cleared and tea and coffee began to be planted over here. So forests were cleared for more cultivation, sleepers for the railways, plantations of tea, coffee and rubber to fulfill the growing demand of the Europeans. So that is why we can say that deforestation was there, of course, to feed the growing population in our country, but at the same time the British rule in our country also resulted in the deforestation. Thank you.